Hello, Sabrina Alery here with a video tutorial for Clearsnap, and today we're going to take a look at creating some fun title work with our brand new Mix'd Media Inx embossing powders and the coordinating Mix'd Media Pigment Inx. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of times I fall in a rut with layouts, just using letter stickers for my title, a photo, my journaling, some embellishments. I'm done. But today I felt like mixing it up a little bit and creating some fun title work using the pigment ink here to create just a block for our title letters. And then also we've done some freestyle embossing with the embossing powders and a couple different colors on the title here. And since I'm not using photos in this layout, my journaling is the highlight. I just wanted to emphasize that by framing each piece, and we're also using the pigment inks and the coordinating embossing colors with that, which I think just adds a lot of fun dimension and interest to the layout. To recreate this project, you will need each of the 8 colors of Colorbox Mix'd Media Inks designed by Donna Salazar. These are the pigment inks, and we also have just released coordinating embossing powders in each of the 8 colors as well. There's chiffon, peridot, denim, jasmine, honey, leather, truffle, and black. We also have a new Simple Dots rollograph wheel. We're using that with the Memory Essentials Get Rolling tool. And then the Top Boss watermark ink. You'll also need a small craft funnel, some chipboard frames, and a chipboard sentiment. I'm using some stamps to create a background and also just to create some flourishes. You'll need a heat gun, a small heart punch. For adhesive, I have some score tape, a repositionable craft stick, and then some liquid glue, or you can just use your regular glue in place of the liquid glue. For paper, I have some chalk painted cardstock, and then one sheet of 12 by 12 cardstock, and just a couple small pieces of coordinating pattern paper. I'm using a color similar to the chiffon and the peridot. A length of twine, and I think that's all we need to get started. Right, so to begin with, I'm going to be embossing some frames with the new Mix'd Media Inx embossing powders. We're using both of the chipboard and the inside of the chipboard, the negative area. I'm just going to begin by dipping the frame here into some watermark ink. Make sure that it is nice and juicy and fully covered. And then I'm going to just dump, for this example, some truffle ink, which is a really pretty dark brown color. Set that aside. And you can just create a funnel with your paper and dump that extra pigment right back into the embossing jar. Really easy. For the negative area, I'm using a sentiment stamp. It says, "You are my happy." And we're just going to repeat that along the back of the frame area. Again, with the watermark ink, we're dipping that. You could also use the pigment ink to hold the embossing particles, whichever you prefer. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some peridot, which is a very pretty sea green, sort of teal color. And then we'll just heat emboss both of those. The embossing powders create a very smooth texture, very beautiful. And then I've got a lot of chipboard exposed here, so I'm just going to ink this up with the denim pigment ink. And we'll wipe that off of the embossing to create the resist background. Alright, now for the inside of the frame, you're going to trace the frame along the background of the chalkstock, and then I'm going to dip the Simple Dots rollograph into the peridot pigment ink. I'm just going to roll that along. You can use the Memory Essentials Get Rolling handle when you're not using the ink cartridges with the rollograph. And now I'm just going to adhere that chalkstock to the back of the frame. Just put a thin layer of glue. You might want to rub it in so it doesn't smear out when you adhere them together. And just set that aside and let that pigment ink fully dry. Next, we're going to create the title for our page. That's really going to be the focal, the centerpiece. And I just have a little chipboard sentiment here that says love. And I'm going to adhere that to the middle with a little bit of repositionable glue so I can keep it in place when I'm embossing, but also remove it when I'm done. I have the chiffon embossing powder. I'm just going to use a little craft funnel here to sort of sprinkle the ink, the embossing powder all around the title. You're going to want to start at the outsides, not in the middle. And definitely try this technique in a box or an enclosed area. because we're not using any sort of ink to hold the embossing powder down here. The heat gun is going to create a little bit of air that's unavoidable, and the pigment ink will spread a bit. So just make sure you fill in all of those areas. This is going to create a pretty sort of like a melted ice cream effect, depending on what color you use. Now, when you're embossing, make sure that you get your gun as hot as possible before you start to emboss. It's going to take a little bit longer also to melt all of those extra particles. I'm just going to chip off the inside of my letters here, so you just have the negative of the image. Again, that sort of looks like, in the pink here, I think, melted ice cream. But it's fun, and it's a unique way to make a title. Now that love sentiment, which is already partially embossed with the chiffon, I dip that in the watermark ink, and then we're going to go over it with just the black embossing powder. And when I heat set that, it's going to create a cool marbled effect, so the pink from underneath will kind of spread into the color. Alright, now to finish out the page, I have my frames here, and these are going to be the focal for the journaling. This page is about some of my favorite things from 2011. So those are going to hold the little pieces of paper with the different categories, the different category items. Some of my favorite movies from last year. We liked Rango, the new Sherlock Holmes movie, and of course the Breaking Dawn from the Twilight series. Those were definitely my top 3 from last year. Get those in here nice and well. And then we'll finish out our frame, or I'm sorry, the title of the page. My paper is just a little extra warped from the heavy embossing, the heavy heat gun. So I need to use a little bit of extra tape to have that held down very well. And then I just have a journaling card here with the title stickers 2011. I'm going to adhere that to the top, and then for the bottom segment, I have stamped using the Mixed Media ink in leather onto some pattern paper just to create some little banners, and that says, I have the alphabet stickers on top of there, just to create a unique title that really is the focal of the page, since we're not using any photos here. And now I have some extra empty areas in the corners, so I'm going to use our pigment inks in black and chiffon to just to fill in that area a bit. The pigment inks work great for stamping as well as embossing. Just remember that they do take a little bit longer to dry. The pigment dries on top of the paper, so you get a deeper, richer color. But if you do smudge it with your finger, it will smudge the ink differently than our dye inks. So now I'm just going to stamp a few hearts to draw together the theme of the page. To create the border for the outside of the page, I just punched out a bunch of hearts and adhere them both to the back and front of the page. I'm just going to adhere the love sentiment right on top of the negative area. You could leave it negatively, or you can adhere that to whichever you'd like to do. And here's a few close-ups of the techniques. For more inspiration, please visit clearsnap.blogspot.com, and for product information, visit www.clearsnap.com.